Well, it's almost that time. We're coming to the end of the 2021 SDG Global Festival of Action. We've heard so much over the last 2 days about the importance of this moment. We've debated, we've challenged, we've been inspired, and we're all feeling ready now, I hope, to take action. But how? How do we keep up the momentum of this moment to guarantee that 2021 becomes a true turning point for people and for planet? That's what we're going to reflect on in our closing time together. And of course, we want to hear from you. So tell us what you're thinking using, I know you know it, #TurnItAround and our handle @SDG Action. And for that matter, follow @SDG Action on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. It's up to us to bring the UN to the world. Now, as we begin this closing conversation, we're so glad to have a special message from a longtime partner that's dear to all of us. Here to tell us how Germany is turning it around for the SDGs, please welcome the Minister of State for the German Federal Foreign Office, Niels Annen.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear virtual SDG Action crowd across the continents. It's an immense pleasure to welcome you all at the Virtual One Conference Center at the Global Hub for Sustainability and Climate Protection. I'm very happy to see thousands of people from the SDG Action community connected from all corners of the world, most of them young people from the Global South. At this Festival of Action, we want to contribute to building the future of our planet. Because we want to have a livable future, it has to be a sustainable future. Germany takes this seriously. The German government adopted the new German National Sustainable Development Strategy this month. It addresses these questions of existential importance. It centers on nothing less than living life in dignity, justice and peace, while at the same time protecting the natural resources on which life depends in Germany and globally. This is why the strategy widens its view beyond the national scene, also looking at German contributions to global sustainability. We are deeply convinced that peace, security and sustainability are mutually dependent. This is why Germany's foreign policy promotes the international drive for sustainable development in an effort that we call diplomacy for sustainability. German diplomacy promotes multilateral solutions because we believe that our common challenges can only be solved through cooperation. An outstanding case in point is the Alliance for Multilateralism, which was launched by the German and French foreign ministers as an informal network of countries to promote important issues of joint interest, as well as the rules-based international order. We are united in our conviction that a rules-based multilateral order is the only reliable guarantee for international stability and peace. Consequently, Germany strengthens international organizations across the board, being the second largest contributor overall to the United Nations. German diplomacy for sustainability furthermore supports many activities and initiatives worldwide, often together with partners. These ranges from peace and stability support in crisis areas in the Middle East and Africa to better controlling small arms and light weapons in the Western Balkans. From climate and water diplomacy in Central Asia to fighting inequalities in oppressive regimes. From promoting the rule of law to ending impunity together, among others, with the International Criminal Court. And last but not least, human rights take center stage in the implementation of the SDGs as they are an indispensable element of sustainable development worldwide. At this year's high-level political forum on sustainable development in New York, Germany will take the opportunity to present its activities and visions in its second voluntary national review. Germany and German diplomacy are putting their weight behind worldwide efforts on the SDGs, jointly with many partners. We want to strive forward, and the Sustainability Hub of Bonn, even in this virtual format, keeps contributing to shaping our sustainable future. At the end of this Festival of Action, I would like to ask all of you to be bold. Let's now move from analysis to action. Let's unite behind multilateral thinking and behind diplomacy for sustainability. Let's fight for the SDGs as a global success story together. And despite difficult pandemic times, allow me to call on you, keep up the positive spirit and make things happen. Vielen Dank and thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Annen. And now for a bit of impromptu inspiration. I'm blown away every time I get the chance to sit down with our next speaker. And you could probably see why if you watch the In Conversation segment we did together earlier today. But when I asked him in our chat what moved him, we were also moved by his answer that we knew we had to save it to share here with you at the end of these phenomenal 2 days. He's a lifelong activist, a mobilizer, a campaigner, a leader on human rights and environmental justice at the likes of Greenpeace, Amnesty International, and Africans Rising for Justice, Peace, and Dignity. Who am I kidding? You already know who it is. Here's the great Kumi Naidoo. If I could just close out lastly, we would love to hear what inspires you because you've been inspiring us for decades. So is there a piece of art, a piece of music? You've mentioned many people. Is there any sort of one closing piece of inspiration you think our festival participants should go check out?
I would say the thing that inspires me most at this moment is this moment, right? This moment offers us two substantially different routes that we can go. One, we can do what we've always done, which is pretend that the way the world is ordered is more or less okay, and all we need is some incremental, small baby step changes here and there, and it's all okay. So what we do is we do a couple of charitable projects, couple of bailouts and so on, and actually the system of control remains exactly as it is. But there is another route, and another route, this moment for that other route is what inspires me. There's a convergence of energies. New constituencies of people who are directly affected by issues are standing up and speaking. We are seeing people who didn't speak out before, even in big business institutions, who are standing up to say, it's clear, my children are also going to die if I don't do something about climate, right? So I am inspired by this moment, but I'm also equally afraid of it, right? So I'm inspired because I think if we muster the kind of courage that young people are forcing us to do, indigenous peoples, the women's movement and other progressive movements, then I think this moment has more opportunity than any other moment that I have known in my activist life, right?
That's incredible.
And because it is such a precious thing, it's also scary that we could blow it. And I am inspired to believe that we have a chance not to blow this inflection point in human history for us to eventually say that we refuse to accept that the world we live in is the best that humanity can create for itself. We refuse to believe. Anybody who says this is the best has no ambition, should step out of public life and to go find a nice quiet place in some rural area and live a good, peaceful life and enjoy nature. Not a bad option, by the way.
And leave the rest of us to save it.
Yeah.
I'm still cheering. Definitely look out for that In Conversation session with Kumi to post soon in our virtual library at globalfestivalofaction.org. Up next, it's my pleasure to turn things over to the head of the UN's SDG Strategy Hub at the UN Office of Partnerships. Here to talk with some forward-thinking guests about the important year ahead and find out what we all can do to play our part. Welcome, my dear friend, Dawda Jobarteh.
Thanks so much, Nadira. I'm really, really excited to be here. You and the team and all of the participants have done a phenomenal job at the festival this year, so congratulations and a huge well done. This festival embodies the promise of the SDGs, the spirit of a decade of action, and illustrates much of what needs to happen around the world every day, everywhere. Really, really quickly commenting on Kumi's last reflections, I think he's absolutely right to be equally inspired and afraid and worried about this moment. You know, throughout the festival, we've heard from young people, from old people, not old people, older people, about what the potential is to turn this moment around in history. And you know, we can't take anything for granted, and we can't take the assumption that we might stumble across success, because success doesn't happen by accident. It happens with bold, decisive investment, policies, action, and intention. And we need to constantly really, really just push ourselves to make sure that we're doing the best that we can at all stages. You know, the festival for me is an opportunity to hear from people around the world, and to really, really reflect on the reality of their lives. And as Kumi said earlier, you know, we need to be talking in a way that people around the world are talking, and in a way that resonates with them, and they're able to take that space from us and for themselves. You know, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said, you read books to get facts, but you talk to people to get their truths. And what we've done here today is we've really heard the truths of young people, of climate defenders, of feminists, of committed government officials, of fellow UN colleagues, and the activists around the world that are on the front lines every day, which reminds us that the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals at the core are really a people's agenda, by the people, for the people. Everyone has a sphere of influence to affect change. And one of the things that we need to do, again, as Kumi said, is humbly figure out how to harness all of these diverse passions and collective experience to make a dent in the world's most ambitious agenda, to really, really move the needle. Everyone has a role to play. We've heard that over and over and over and over again, including from the first intervention from the UN Development Program's administrator himself. He pointed out at the start of the festival that, referring to youth climate activists, that, you know, they really are leading government policies because of their actions. You know, what young people are bringing to the table to this conversation goes well beyond hindsight of what we have done before in the past, but is really, really focused on what we need to do in the future and what comes next. To tell us more about this moment and to share some concrete plans for the road ahead, I'm really, really pleased to be joined today by three amazing youth leaders and activists. First, we have Abel Koka. He's a program coordinator and gender activist from Restless Development. We'll also be joined today by the founder of Mojo Studios, climate activist and designer, Runa Ray. And finally, a very, very warm welcome to Vice President and Poverty and Inequality Activist of Ensemble por Techo Internacional, Inés Yábar. Thank you for all coming and joining us today, and welcome. I'm going to really, really quickly ask each of you in turn two things. My first question is about inspiration. We'd really, really like to hear from you in terms of what your motivation for becoming an activist has been. And secondly, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, much like all of the participants before us, one thing that viewers can do this year to play their role in turning things around. So Abel, what is the source of your passion, and how can others join you in this journey?
I grew up in a family whereby my sister did not get the right to education as myself and my brothers, because my parents, by then, they believed that women belong to the kitchen, but also girls should stay at home and wait for their time to get married. And as much as I was not okay with that situation, I couldn't do much to change that, because I didn't have that knowledge on gender equality. So I promised myself that one day I should change the situation, and start learning about gender equality, women's rights. And it's when I realized that women deserve a seat at the table, but also they have a place in the community to drive changes and development in their families and community level. And at the moment I finished my university studies, it's when I was looking for a platform to amplify my voice, because this is what young people are missing, a platform to amplify their voices, but also the place to unleash their power and to their potential. So I joined Restless Development, working to build the capacity of young people to drive accountability against their decision makers, to deliver their gender equality policies commitment. But also through my own initiatives, I was carrying sessions in secondary schools, universities and colleges to build the capacity of young people, because young people are forming the majority of the world population. And until and unless they join the fight for gender equality, it's when we can accelerate the realization of gender equality in the community. So I saw that as an opportunity for me to work with young people in the community to build their knowledge and place them at the front and center of bridging the gender gap in the community. But we all know that it's 25 years since the adoption of the Beijing Platform for Action. And much has been done, but we are still lagging behind with the progress. The progress is very slow to achieve gender equality. So from my own perspective, if you ask me what should be done in order to accelerate the achievement of gender equality, I should tell you that for the decision makers, first, we should treat young people as key stakeholders in the achievement of gender equality, in the designing, implementation, and achievement of gender equality, and not merely beneficiaries. But for men and boys, we should see this as an opportunity, because gender equality is not for women and girls only. We all benefit when women and girls have equal opportunity and rights as men and boys. But for my fellow young people, we are forming the majority of the world population. And whatever is being done, whether to achieve or not to achieve gender equality and the SDGs at large, will impact us more than anyone else in the community. So it's time now we should come back from the backbenchers and stand in the front line in pushing for policy change, changing social norms, tradition, and customs which are discriminating against women and girls in the community. Because if we were envisioning for the better community and better world, that will not be possible if women and girls are not placed at the center of gender equality, but also the achievement of the SDGs. And how can we engage then? How can we force our engagement and our active participation? We have like intergenerational dialogue happening now in the Community Generation Equality Forum. It's starting next week in Mexico, and then it will be followed by France. We can force our participation. Although people are not seeing us as key stakeholders, let's forge our participation, because somebody said that if there is no a seat at the table for you, bring your chair from your home, from anywhere, and put it there for you to be listened and to air your views. But there are various organizations which are carrying various initiatives. For instance, Restless Development, we are launching a Feminist Action Lab, which is an online course to build the capacity of young people to know the history where the Beijing Plus 25 process beginning, where we are, and where young people can drive this journey. And I should tell young people now is not the time to be passive. We should be aggressive if at all we want to see the community whereby women and girls, boys and men have equal rights and opportunities for the sustainable development of the community. Thank you so much.
Abel, what an absolutely powerful voice and powerful words spoken. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Runa Ray, climate activist and founder of Mojo Studios. Runa, really, really briefly, what is the trigger for your activism, and what's the one thing that you would like to see people around the world do this year?
Thank you, Dawda. Definitely very insightful and important questions. But before I start off on that, I would like to congratulate the team behind this fantastic, beautiful festival. I'm almost sad that it's coming to an end. But like I said, I'd like to congratulate the team, the panelists with me, the moderator, and the fantastic audience. To answer your question as to what inspired me to become an activist, it was basically three things. So I'm a fashion designer, and we know that fashion is one of the largest contributors when it comes to climate change, and also the non-transparency that exists within the industry, like child labor, gender inequality. So I decided to delve in deeper. So it was curiosity that was number one that got me to understand the industry from different aspects apart from the glamour. Secondly, the love for people and planet got me concerned with what the industry was doing. And especially with like the textile dyes, the plastics, animals slaughtered for the fur that was not being used. And I took it upon myself that it was important to get this message across to people so that they start making better choices. So that led me to communication, and using communication with fashion as a form of activism to educate and advocate for policy change. So these were the three things. One was curiosity, the second one was concern, and the third one was communication. I also feel that the SDGs operate on the similar platform. And we have several events happening this year, like the UN Decade of Ocean Science, the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. You have the pre-COP, you've got the COP26, you have the UN Office of Partnerships, which requires young people to be a part of very, very important decision-making. So I would like to tell everybody who's watching here to please follow these events and try to become a part of this important choice-making and decision-making process. Lastly, the one thing that people could probably do now to turn it around, I would like to think that we are like a big family. Now, this is something the pandemic has taught us. And we are one large family, and we're kind of, in this boat, and we're rowing towards a more resilient future. Now, if you just got like a few people rowing, we're probably going to get there a little later, or probably not even get there. But if you're going to do it together, we're definitely going to reach our goal. So the word would be unity, to unite, to look at the SDGs as one unit, as your guiding North Star, to place your actions upon the SDGs, and together, united, we will not just survive, but we will also thrive. Thank you so much.
Runa, I couldn't agree with you more on all of the points that you've raised. Thank you so much. Last, but certainly not least, I'm going to pose the same question to Vice President and Poverty and Equality Activist Inés Yábar of Ensemble por Techo Internacional. Inés, what can you share about your inspiration, and what is the one thing that people can do to make a real difference?
Thank you. I think these are really powerful questions. And I'd say when I started at 15 years old being an activist, I didn't even know I was an activist. I think this is a word that has kind of come up. But for me, I just wanted to do something. I believe that we can all be activists and we can use our force for good. So that's what I wanted to do. I started building houses in shanty towns with Techo. I started doing beach cleanups with Loop. I didn't yet know what I was interested in, if it was humanitarian action, if it was plastic pollution, if it was climate change. I just wanted to do something to help and have that power to actually do a change for good. So I also wanted to be excited, and I wanted to do things that stretched me. I think being an activist has taught me so much more than I could have dreamt, and even it has complemented my studies as well. So I think it was just the desire to be active, to do something and to learn something, and just I was hungry to build a new approach and to do something as a young person, to have that power. And I maybe wasn't going to be paid for it, but I loved it. And I still am an activist today, and I still do activism next to my job. And I'd say that's what I would tell people to do this year, is just find what you're passionate about, find what you love, find what you want to do. In my case, inequality is a very cross-cutting issue. It can be inequality in access to education. It can be inequality in terms of poverty. We've seen it with COVID. There's inequality everywhere. So that can be what you're interested in, but it can also be any number of topics. And we've seen it throughout this whole summit. There's just so much that we can do. So find what you're interested in. And if you don't know what you want to start in, for example, in terms of inequality, there's the Food System Summit in July, and Abel said some other summits that are happening, Runa as well. So get engaged in those spaces. And together we're stronger in whatever topic that we're doing. And lastly, if you like to read, there's also a book called Make It Happen, How to Be an Activist, that one of my fellow activists launched at the beginning of the year. You can read that, and it's got a million different tips so that you can be an activist yourself too.
I will definitely pick that up, Inés. Thank you. And just to really, really quickly recap, we've heard from our three speakers a handful of really, really important things. I'm just teasing out a little bit of what it is that they said. Youth need to turn up their volume and be given a place. If they're not given a place, they should bring their stool to the table and force it through. Boys and men must play a role in gender equality. We saw Runa talk about her love for people and planet through fashion, through her curiosity, concern, and the communications around that, and the idea and the reality to follow events where influence can happen both at home as well as on the global or regional stage. We've heard that only together will we succeed in our goal, and that's around unity and being unified, and using the SDGs or the global goals as the guiding star. And we can't forget that the word activism has a very, very important word there, root word, the act. And in order for anything to happen, you need to act, and you need action to follow that. Hope needs action. And we need to use our voices for a force of good. Inés talked about, finding your passion and finding a way to scale it and connect it to other things as well to, again, drive that action that needs to happen. Thank you to the speakers for joining us and sharing your inspiration. I know I am very inspired by what you've said and what you've done. Please keep it up and push your way through and push your way to that table. Really, really quickly, we've heard over the last 2 days and, previous years, the power of people power. Everything is driven, whether we're talking about institutions, governments, companies, private sector, organizations, civil society, is powered by people. These institutions and organizations don't run themselves, and we cannot forget that for even a second, that it is about connecting. It is about making sure that the decisions that we make and we take have planet and people in mind. And we have to recognize that every single decision we take, every decision we support or choose not to support has implications in it as well. And everyone has a role, everyone has a voice. The voiceless need to be given more profile and more platform. And we need to just make sure, I had a whole bunch of notes that I'm not referring to, but Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the urgency of now. Now is our moment to turn things around. We can't wait. We can't leave it for others. We can't expect others to make sure that it's done in the right way. Everyone needs to play a part of that. And in the mantra and the framing of the Decade of Action, we need to continue to mobilize everyone everywhere. We need to demand ambition and accountability and act now for the SDGs. That's all for me. Again, a huge, huge congratulations to the SDG Action Campaign team, to Nadira, to the moderators, to our amazing sign interpreter who's been on every single screen throughout the entire show. That's all for me. Now let's head back to my dear friend, Nadira, in the studio.
What a great session. Thank you so much, Dawda, Abel, Runa, and Inés for everything you shared and for everything you're doing to make a difference. Well, we're almost at the end, and I am not exaggerating when I say it's been emotional and spectacular, but it's not quite time to say goodbye yet. First, I've obviously got to ask you one last time to post up a storm on all your social media platforms from now straight through to the next festival using hashtag #TurnItAround and our handle @SDG Action. And we've seen so much inspirational and enlightening content over the course of the festival that we'd be truly remiss if we didn't take a moment to reflect on what we've achieved in just 2 short days. So joining me now on the virtual stage, please welcome my wonderful colleagues, UN SDG Action Campaign Director Marina Ponti and Global Event Strategist Hannah Messenger. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Nadira.
Hey. So each year the festival evolves, bringing new people and new insights into the program, but never more so than this year. Hannah, for many of us behind the scenes, you're the backbone of the festival, which this time around obviously meant a huge leap into the unknown. So tell us what went into taking our physical festival into cyberspace.
Hey Nadira. Yeah, so 2020 wasn't just a difficult year. It was a year of extremes. So on the one hand, we saw these incredible expressions of solidarity, and then on the other, these glaring examples of injustice and inequalities. So at that time, we started thinking about what we could do. So how could we play our role in offsetting the relentlessness of this pandemic? How could we seize on that tiny glimmer of hope behind the despair, the hope that there could be opportunity in this moment? Like, how could we push through the noise and support this community to stick the world back together differently before this finite window closes and we run the risk of going back to the way things were before, or possibly even worse? So thinking about how we could, kind of harness this moment, we thought about the tools at our disposal, and what we had was this platform, this annual meeting of minds, of ideas, of different voices. So, we just knew that we needed to go full steam ahead into a new virtual world, learn a whole new language of tech platforms and production sheets and sting videos and transitions, and keep that momentum going forward. So at first, obviously, we were unsure.
Just by how fast you're going. You've got the full lay of the land now.
Nadira. Yeah, I mean, we were so unsure, would this work? Would the essence of the festival work in an online space? That essence of connection and collaboration, that human togetherness. But yeah, we knew that we had to try. So we thought about all of these interactive formats and frameworks to foster interactivity. We thought about connection lounges and meeting spaces, different functionalities. And then we looked at social media campaigns. So how could we gather the different voices together? So we called upon our friends, our colleagues, our partners to bring their stories, their networks, their campaigns, and their skill sets. And I have to say, we were just absolutely blown away by the interest, the enthusiasm, and the commitment from everybody that we spoke to. I've just felt so inspired at every step of this journey through the conversations that we've been having with all of these amazing partners and speakers. And, when you call upon this community, something that just can't be denied is that they answer, and they answer boldly and loudly and unapologetically, because they have something so important to say and something that we all need to hear.
And why was it so important to share? Like, what does the festival offer that just needed to exist?
Well, I think at this turning point, at this moment, the most critical offer that we could bring was to actually bring this community back together to ensure that everybody felt connected to the actions and the ideas that each other were taking at a time when everybody is just so physically far apart, because we know and we've seen that when this community comes together, truly incredible things can happen. From the Kumi Naidus through to the volunteers on the help desk, this festival is just packed with change makers and solution holders. But the true magic of this moment of being able to come to the virtual space is that this now can live on, and this is a vehicle for momentum. So, what an absolute honor to be able to bring all of those people together and share these ideas far and wide.
It's an incredible vehicle, and it's also a vessel, just as we all are, for solutions, hopefully. But do we actually know what our reach has been over the course of this first ever virtual festival, speaking of the platform?
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's quite hard for everybody to get a sense of just how big this moment is when we're sitting in front of our screens. But when we said we were going bigger and bolder than ever before, we truly, truly meant it. So our final figures show that over the past 2 days, we've reached over 24,000 registered participants in the virtual platform itself. Yep, and via Zoom as well through our workshops. So, that's just an incredible moment for us. We've also seen that the conversation on social media has just exploded. So we've seen over 110,000 people carrying on these conversations outside of the festival walls. And of course, one of our main goals was to create a space where people could meet and forge connections that will hopefully lead to those collaborations and that action. And in this virtual platform, we've seen that we've made a whopping 14,000 connections between different participants across the 2 days. So we couldn't ask for more than that right now.
Not at all. And I have to underscore, those 14,000 connections are happening in the virtual world. That's the beauty of doing the festival every year. And you've been able to replicate it here, which is something we absolutely have to applaud. And it's like you always say, the festival doesn't belong to the UN SDG action campaign. It belongs to this entire community that's driving action every single day. And speaking of our community, if you're already feeling nostalgic for the past 2 days, and I know I am, I hear we have some awesome festival highlights to share. So let's take a look.
We are the possible. We are the remarkable. We house within us tremendous capacity to turn it around.
We shouldn't sit back and just assume somebody else is going to take care of this for us.
We really need all the decision makers on board so we can make the necessary changes before it's too late.
It is about a new era. It is about a new dawn, and that we don't come back to doing things the same way.
Connect the present that is often both legacy and opportunity to that future. And the SDGs are, in many ways, the connective tissue.
We continue to discuss our solutions and continue to empower different voices within our movements. We can work towards building more sustainable and equitable horizons for everyone across the globe.
So good. I'm starting to get goosebumps. And you both must just be feeling beyond proud. But that goes for the whole amazing team. Marina, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the team and all the people who made our festival possible. So go right ahead.
Thank you, Nadira. So many people and organizations made this event possible. So we made a short video to capture everyone. But before the video starts, let me say a huge thank you to my team. As we heard from Hannah, the festival is way more than a two-day event. It's a journey, and I'm privileged to make it with each one of them. As I cannot invite them on the stage, like in previous edition, let me show you with great pride and enormous gratitude my team. To the team, Hannah, Xavi, Anand, Caroline, Marta, Tina, Brittany, Lisa, Sebastiano, Jade, Nadia, Martin, Zuha, Krisha, Annie, Natalie, and Anne-Catherine. Thank you also to the UNDP Japan team for the beautiful Japan stage. And then as you watch the people and organization running on the screen, including you, Nadira, please allow me to thank again our content, session, and workshop hosts, and our exhibitors, our speaker, and our performers, all of whom created this wonderful program. And as we had the French, Spanish, and sign language interpretation for the first time, thank you so much to all the interpreters for doing such a wonderful job. And also thank you to UN Web TV for the live broadcast. Last, a shout out to the donors that you saw featured in the platform, the Japan and the German government, the BMW Foundation, Canon, Oculus, and the Lavazza Group. And finally, of course, my biggest thank you of all goes to every single one of you that's tuned in and has taken part across the past 2 days. You are why we do it. Thank you.
Wonderful. And of course, we'd like to thank you too, Marina. It feels like yesterday you were taking the stage for your first festival as director of the campaign. And now here you are pushing to keep us going through the most uncertain times. Thank you for being our leader and just encouraging us every day to change the world. We love you. Now, before we say our final goodbyes, I can't let you two go without one last question. What's your own personal standout moment from this 2021 festival? One that made you stop and think, or that you just know you'll remember forever? And like I always say, don't think too hard. Just tell us what's on your heart. And of course, be quick. Marina, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so when Bebe Vio, Paralympian, said that for her, the word impossible doesn't exist. And when CEO of one campaign said, we have one pandemic, please, let's not have two future. And lastly, I saw so many young women, not only talking about wanting to have their voice heard, but wanting to run for office and occupying the space in public and private life.
Yes, amazing. I'm falling out of my chair just cheering for that. What about you, Hannah?
So for me, I don't think it's one specific moment, but rather, kind of transition that we've seen through the messaging at the
Hannah,
festival this year.
Cheating me out of the question? I'll allow it, but just this one.
I will keep it brief, but it's, it's more of a moment within the festival itself.
Fair
and
enough.
I think that's the power. that we're seeing of, the focus of the conversations now are focusing on achieving the goals through the people and the humanity. So we've seen Otto Scharmer say that it's time to activate the intelligence of the heart. And we've heard Mitzi tell us that it's love that drives revolutions. And I think this transition is showing that we're moving from thinking of the SDGs as complex policy issues into thinking of them as based in humanity. It's like the soul of the SDGs is front and center. And that for me, I think is just beautiful.
That is beautiful. And I see that you wanted to have multiple moments, not just, which is wonderful. That's a great workaround. And I know I was supposed to think of a moment too, and I have to tell you, there are so many. But if I had to choose one, it would absolutely be my in conversation with Rob Bilott, who is the lawyer that's played by Mark Ruffalo in the movie Dark Waters. We are really lucky in these venues to have the opportunity to be in rooms with so many amazing people, and that's wonderful. But every once in a while, you're sitting in front of somebody who you just know, listening to them or getting the chance to talk to them is absolutely going to change the way you look at the world from this moment forward. Oh my gosh, here I am again, tearing up at the festival. It happens live and it's happening right now in our virtual world, but it really moved me. And that's what I felt talking to Rob, because he was so brilliant and so humble and so passionate after 20 years of fighting to keep chemicals out of our water, that I just walked out of that conversation, even though it was virtual, even though it's in this whole new world that we're all struggling to find our way in. I walked out of it feeling not just like we need to change the world, which I always feel, but like we actually can change the world. So once again, in this new environment, I am as inspired as I ever have been by this global festival, and maybe even more. So thank you all for that. And thank you especially Hannah and Marina for just making it possible and making us feel and live in that culture of possibility. With that, we are almost at the end now. So Marina, we'd love to hear some closing thoughts from you. Please bring us home.
Thank you, Nadira. Well, to summarize these past 2 days is a tough job. How can I do justice to 300 speakers and 24,000 participants? But what I will say is this. Together, you reminded me what a privilege it is to be part of this community. My goal for the festival was listen to you. I wonder, are we ready to make this a turning point for people and for the planet? Do we have the vision, the passion, and the courage to reinvent how we live? Can we seize this moment? Well, I have my answer. Yes, yes, and yes. Whether you come from government or the arts, activists, or civil society, you have said it loud and clear. You are ready. Conversations on climate change, inequalities, and the sharing of resources have reached powerful momentum. New energy is flowing around the Sustainable Development Goals. Problems once considered too inconvenient to solve are now high on the world's agendas. World leaders are finally beginning to see that bad habits can be broken, that we can turn away from short-term gains in one area that exploit weaknesses elsewhere. Over the last few days, I've loved hearing the inspiring voices of the young people, many women, leading the discussion. They're full of energy and drive to save their world, a world that previous generations, including mine, have failed to protect. I've also enjoyed watching panels with so many women, realizing this is still far from the norm. Let's make it the norm from here forward. As we conclude, I ask you to remember, if we fail to make 2021 a turning point, it will be too late. The time is really now. I urge you, be positive, be proactive. Above all, be the change. It is possible because it has been done, because there are enough of us to start a butterfly effect felt around the world. Let me close with a quote from Eddie, who opened the festival and whose sentiments I like to echo. I believe so much in you, in your capacity, in your brilliance, in your grit, in your imagination, in your insistence in holding leaders to account everywhere. And I like two things to add these words. One, together we're stronger. And two, this is just the beginning. Thank you all.
Oh, Marina, I'm going to try to make it through this next minute without tearing up, but that's how inspiring this festival is, and that's how important this work is. So yes, yes, and yes, that says it all. We come to the Global Festival every year in the spirit of yes. You and your whole wonderful team clearly willed this all virtual, practically all encompassing festival into being in the spirit of yes, because you knew we needed it. And it's my sincerest hope now that all of you will head out into the world in that same spirit of yes. But the joy of our virtual space is that you can always come back. All our amazing content will start posting tomorrow on globalfestivalofaction.org. So keep spreading the word, keep changing the world, and let's just live in possibility. Let's hashtag turn it around for people and for planet. And that's a wrap for the 2021 SDG Global Festival of Action. Thank you, and we'll see you next year.